A word of warning for today's episode. We will be discussing what some, including us, have characterized as child exploitation in several Hollywood films. I will also be making an argument for sex-positive feminism, so it's a bit of a roller coaster ride today. You've been warned. Strange Ride is brought to you commercial-free through the generous support of our patrons. Visit strangerideshow.com and click on Donate to help keep the history of the weird on the digital airwaves. In 1982, Phoebe Cates swam naked across movie screens nationwide, and nobody cared. Cates had been willing to appear fully nude on camera, but had soured on choices the production team had made while editing the film and turned against her own starring role. Paradise told the story of a young couple's sexual awakening in a desert oasis in the early 19th century. Despite Cates and her co-star Willie Aames' cover model bodies, the dramatic tension of a human trafficker in hot pursuit of the young heroes, and the comic stylings of two chimpanzees, audiences and critics alike rejected the movie. Today, the movie has a perfect 0% rating on Rotten Tomato and is difficult to see in every sense of the word, available to stream only in low-fidelity uploads on YouTube and the Internet Archive. But Paradise's failure was a bit of a mystery. The same general premise had proved box office gold only 2 years before, and Cates would go on to become an international sex symbol and comic talent with her roles in teen sex farces like Fast Times at Ridgmont High and the blockbuster horror comedy Gremlins. So, what was the trouble with Paradise? Yes, you are listening to a flipped episode of Strange Ride. I am today's host, Dr. Rob C. Thompson, talking about the 80s again, my millennial friends, and I guess other generations who appreciate the 80s. Do you guys appreciate the 80s, my young millennial friends?
I think they're coming back.
Johnny Cook here.
I mean, I guess.
Savannah Verrett, whose show this actually is.
You've talked to me so much about the 80s, but
I'm trying to talk you into them. It was an era of cultural excess, don't get me wrong, and the values of the 80s are certainly problematic, but there's so much to enjoy. The worst of the 80s, I think, is apparently my theme, right? I did the worst song of the 80s, now I'm doing one of the worst movies of the 80s, which happened to come out in the first 2 years of the 80s. Where were you guys in 1982?
not born.
Yeah.
Me neither.
That's like a decade and a half before my existence began.
I was not born when this movie came out, actually. It came out right before I was born. 2 years. So are we ready to do this? We should do it. We got to pledge it.
Yeah.
Pledge it. Do you know the pledge, John, on this one?
I believe I have done it once before.
You did it for SCP?
Yes.
Yeah. I solemnly commit myself to keep my hands, arms, feet, and legs inside the vehicle at all times while on this strange ride.
Damn. I almost jumped into the occult confessions one because
You always
you were
want to.
talking. I'm used to that.
I feel like it's acceptable.
Yeah, either one works. John was right on that, though. He knew that word for word. He's an actor, you know. 2 years before Cates and Aames mounted an Israeli camel, a 14-year-old...
What?
I need to
Hold
say
on.
that
Can
again.
you say that again?
I'm not sure I understood.
2 years before Cates and Aames mounted an Israeli camel, a 14-year-old, 2 years before...
What do you...
in the movie,
okay.
in Paradise, they ride a camel in Israel.
Okay.
A 14-year-old Brooke Shields.
I haven't seen this movie, by the way.
No, it's fine. You don't really... This is not one of those movies you need to see to discuss. I'm going to hit all the points. Nobody needs to have seen this movie. I understand it is a 0% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. I watched it for you so we can talk about naked people.
I should have watched it, too, so I could interrupt you every 30 seconds.
But it's not that kind of movie. Anyway, it's just not enough to discuss, really. Anyway... I mean, there is. I'm here to do it, but let's talk about Brooke Shields.
The topic we're talking about today is not. There's not a lot. To talk
There's
about.
not a lot, except for the next hour of your day. I'm trying to talk about a 14-year-old Brooke Shields. Nobody wants to do this. I know it makes us uncomfortable, but it must be done. So she appeared mostly naked in a movie about two cousins reaching sexual maturity and discovering each other on a desert island. That movie was called The Blue Lagoon. The movie's 32-year-old stunt woman subbed in for Shields in instances when the camera actually saw her character's breasts and pubic hair. John, do you want to make a sound every time I say pubic hair?
Ooh.
I don't know if that's the right sound for this one.
But she's 32. She's
Okay.
32.
Yeah.
She's 32.
But it is-
Because the presence of pubic hair.
In 32-year-old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fine. She's a
Yes.
grown woman. She could have children.
But that is weird that they, well,
Yes,
one, that they were going to
yes.
have a 14-year-old
They wanted you to believe it
do
was a 14-year-old's pubic hair.
Yeah, exactly. Or body in general, but
As Savannah's saying, the suggestion that the audience was seeing a 14-year-old fully naked brought a major Hollywood movie far too close to child pornography, in my opinion. The movie was based on a 1908 novel by Henry de Vere Stockpool that Randall Kleiser, previously known for directing Grease, that's right, the director of Grease, created The Blue Lagoon.
I feel like I want to make a strange ride. I don't know if it's a strange ride or just a rant about how much I hate the movie Grease.
Grease? You're not the only
Interesting.
one.
hate that movie.
You're not the only one. I believe Ebert. I'm gonna quote Roger Ebert in this episode, and I'll go ahead and say already that his review of the Blue Lagoon, which he did not like at all, he said, "I still found this coming of age story superior to Kleister's former attempt, where they all were singing and dancing in leather." So. Anyway, Kleiser, previously known for directing Grease, which, I have to say, right, Blue Lagoon and Grease, they actually make a lot of sense. Like, if this is his thing, it's about, teenagers coming of age with, funky sexual politics. Is that not true of Grease? Like, it's all about, making the good girl go bad and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I guess that is a coming of age story. I never thought about it like
With
that.
weird sexual politics. Like, it's not really a feminist movie, is it?
I wouldn't say that at all,
Right.
actually.
But you see what I mean? Similarly, we had this weird thing going on with Blue Lagoon and Brooke Shields being
is
14.
strange.
Yeah, it's just what he does. So it all sort of clicks together.
It's just what he does.
It's just his thing. It's just what America asks of him. So Randall Kleiser had worked to obtain the rights to produce De Vere Stockpool's novel, which, any of you
He
in
went
the
out of his
arts
way.
to obtain the rights to this novel. Yeah, he really wanted to make this novel into a movie. And anyone who's hearing that, you already, maybe, we like to talk about the copyright issues on this show, but it should already be setting off bells because 1908 and 1982, like, copyright has more or less lapsed, but it's more complicated than that, so hold that thought. In fact, Stockpool had died in 1951. So the book was still copyrighted, not in America, though. It was copyrighted under UK law, because UK law, I believe the copyright begins at the author's death date, or like the expiration begins to stretch from the author's death date.
Oh.
Whereas in the US, it's based on the date of publication.
Oh.
So it's like 75 years from date of publication in the United States or so, depending on when it's renewed. It's like 50, and then you can renew it to go to 70, something like that. Don't quote me on that, friends, lawyers in the audience. But in the UK, it's pegged to the author's death date. So, like Lord of the Rings, I think, is pegged to Tolkien's death date.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, the book had already been made into 2 earlier movies, but Kleister had a vision for updating the novel for the dawn of the 80s. Casting children in sexualized roles was not a new idea. Trigger warning, sorry. Trigger warning.
That's
Maybe
very
put
fair.
this at the beginning
We're
of
going
the
to have to say,
episode.
yeah, okay. Trigger, say it at the end. Casting children in sexualized roles was not a new idea, but one Hollywood had been experimenting with for several years. Jodie Foster played a child prostitute in 1976 and was considered for the role of Emmeline in Blue Lagoon, the role that Shields ended up playing.
Emmeline?
That's the name of the character,
That's a
yeah.
nice name.
It's pretty.
Yeah. Never heard that name before.
Shields
It's a new
herself,
D&D character name.
Emmeline. Oh,
It's just not based off of this character, sorry.
there's nothing wrong with the character. It's just, I don't think you're going to hate the character. The politics of the casting and all is something we can certainly take issue with, but the character's fine. Shields herself had appeared as a child prostitute as well in 1978's Pretty Baby. That's right. 1976, 1978, 2 different actors played child prostitutes as actual children.
Oh.
Yeah. That starred Susan Sarandon, by the way, Pretty Baby. In Pretty Baby, the 12-year-old Shields performed her own nude scenes. I don't want to repeat that, but I do want to let that sink in for a second. She was 12.
That's terrifying.
However, as far as I can tell, I think everyone is probably, I hope all of you at home are having the same reaction to this that we are, that I did when I researched this, now you guys hearing this, but as far as I can tell, like Susan Sarandon and the people associated with Pretty Baby defend the movie even to this day. Like, even with everything that's passed in sexual politics in America, they still defend this movie's like right to be and to be seen.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I saw no argument against it except the ones that we are all naturally conjuring in our heads.
Is Brooke Shields still alive?
She is. Oh, yeah. Brooke Shields is young. She's in her like mid-50s. Yeah, because she was only...
She was a child.
She's 14 in 1980, right? So we can do the math. Yeah,
Yeah.
So she's maybe 59, something like that. No, she's younger than that. 50. Anyway, she's young, relatively young. She's not near death. Neither is Jodie Foster. They're both... Jodie Foster's, what, in her 60s probably now?
What could the
Late
argument
50s?
be in favor of that?
That it's art. That it's art. That it has artistic merit, I guess, would be... Both Jodie Foster played a prostitute, right, in what did I say, Taxi Driver? Scorsese. Nobody questions that. Taxi Driver is considered one of the greatest movies of the 20th century, right? No? Nobody knows what I'm talking about?
I know
don't
Taxi
know
Driver.
Yeah.
I've never seen it before. I was listening to you.
Yeah, but John was just like glazing over.
Oh.
Yeah, so we just sort of like accept it, I think, if it's artistically motivated. I'll get into the politics of it, I guess. Let's just start digging down into this. So in Blue Lagoon, what I'm trying to say about Blue Lagoon, because we're really talking about Naked in Paradise movies today, these two Naked in Paradise movies. Blue Lagoon, though, we need to let this movie off the hook because it was not actually directly responsible for sexualizing Shields, even though it sexualized her. You see what I mean? Like, it had already been done. And Jodie Foster. Like, these two women were both considered for this role, having already appeared in sexualized roles as children in previous movies. So it's not like Blue Lagoon is coming up with this. They're just perpetuating it.
It's not the first offender.
No. I mean, which like, doesn't make it okay, right, from a moral standpoint. But so in 1977, I'm going to make this even ickier. I promise we're going to get to Phoebe Cates, and it's all going to be better soon. Phoebe Cates is coming. In 1977, New York Magazine featured Shields and her mother Terry on the cover with a headline that said Terry thought it was swell that her underage daughter was a nude model. Shortly after Blue Lagoon premiered, Shields appeared in Calvin Klein ads informing the American clothing consumer that nothing came between her and her Calvins. Should I let you think about that for a second?
No, it's okay.
This is like a 15-year-old girl, right?
Yeah.
At least one network television station wouldn't air these ads because the ad department believed they verged on child pornography. I think it was CBS.
Nice.
Yeah.
Go CBS. Not only did you bring Letterman over, but you also fought the Calvin Klein ads. I believe these ads are what made Calvin Klein famous, too. I think these launched his career. Yeah.
What?
I mean, he was able to do a national ad, right, at that point. So it's not like he was nobody.
Yeah.
But I think these like catapulted him into
Like a household name.
to what he ended up becoming.
What's like? How does she feel? I mean, I guess how
Today?
Does she, about these things.
I think complicated is the answer.
I feel like you would have to. Yeah.
It's a complicated because she's very successful and she was successful and it was her mother's
I
idea.
was about to say, can we blame the mom a little
Yeah.
bit?
No. Yeah. It's
for so many
100%.
things, right? Like there's so many situations where we can blame mom. I don't know, and this is still happening. Let's take a moment.
It kind of reminds me a little bit of like Dance Moms a little bit.
And the Instagram, let's not glaze over this, right? I think this is an important point. I'm glad you said this. This is still happening. There are women, God love them, God must love them, I hope God loves them and helps them, who are placing images of their daughters on Instagram in order to attract the attention of adult men who have those inclinations. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The New York Times did, I think, multiple stories on this recently. It's a phenomenon, but it's not new. Mm-hmm. In the case of Terry Shields, she was far more successful at it than these women on Instagram. But
and it
nevertheless,
was just broadcasted on a bigger scale.
Everyone's getting their payday. I think that maybe we feel more justified for Terry. I don't know if we do. I think it's quite icky, but insofar as she did accomplish something for her daughter that was international fame, I don't know. I guess that's the trade-off, but it's a devil's bargain, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like a dark, dark devil's bargain.
Yeah.
Whew. Okay. This is the darkest part, friends. I promise. Phoebe Cates she's gonna be better. She's gonna make it better. Not better, 0%, but less icky. At least one network. Okay, I said so. Blue Lagoon was continuing, as we're saying, a very dark tradition that launched and sustained Shields' career. Shields was in the center of a culture of envelope pushing over the definition of child pornography that would make any modern viewer uncomfortable. Like John and I's exchange here about, well, it's artistic merit. What's the difference between child pornography and art? Well, merit. Like it's a slippery, weird thing to hang your hat on. Was the purpose of it to titillate, or was the purpose of it to tell, some sort of like meaningful story, whatever, significant tale? If it's the second one, it's not pornography. But the Supreme Court, I think, famously said, I know it when I see it. Maybe not. Somebody said that. Okay. There was, not child pornography, but pornography in general. There was significant, I don't want to suggest, though, that everybody just went along with this. There was significant pushback, particularly to Shields' appearance in Pretty Baby. Hollywood had only very recently opened the door to more controversial content with the invention of the rating system in 1968. Let's not forget this. We are within a decade of the invention of the rating system.
Oh, because that was one of your mic flips was about that, wasn't it?
I love the rating system.
The PG-13, right?
I just can't stop talking. And Gremlins and Phoebe Cates. It all clicks together. So the rating system is 10 years old when Brooke Shields appears in Pretty Baby. That's young. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not just Brooke, but also the rating system itself is younger than her. Before the rating system, Hollywood had a code wherein you couldn't do X, Y, and Z. Like, there was no opportunity to do what we see in R-rated movies today.
Because I think before the code, it was just the Wild West.
To some extent, yeah. But the code reined everybody in, and they all abided by this, these moral standards, that kind of thing. This was like the, heyday of the film noir and the, femme fatales and all these sorts of characters that nevertheless were always moralized against, right? You didn't want to be the femme fatale. She never won at the end of the day. So that movie tradition ends in 68. Summer of Love and all this sort of stuff. The hippie era ushers in this, new sexual liberation, and 10 years later we have Pretty Baby. I'm not saying that the hippies caused Pretty Baby, but it's all of a piece, right? These things are in the culture. I expect the edgier movies of the 70s were in part a game to see how far the system could be bent until it broke. So, directors like even Scorsese to some extent, freaking Roman, what's his name? Rosemary's Baby.
Talking about Polanski?
Polanski, there he is, thank you. These guys were all envelope pushing, and we know Roman Polanski had issues, or has issues. He's dead now? Had issues. Legal issues with this stuff.
Oh.
Blue Lagoon did not...
Like he was against this stuff?
No, he was accused of...
Oh.
There you go. Okay.
Oh.
Blue Lagoon did not render its female lead as a sex worker. Pretty Baby, remember, she was a prostitute. Now she's just a girl on an island who happens to be attracted to her cousin. But it comes across as more perverse, in my opinion, because it wasn't an especially good movie by nearly any critical standard. So Pretty Baby's trying to say something about society and culture. Blue Lagoon is just sexy naked people on an island.
It's missing the merit part.
Theoretically. Let's hold that thought.
It's also weird, too, the extra layer on top of it of her cousin.
Yes, it adds a little more kink.
Let's see how much taboo we can add to this.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's about as much as we can stand. The artistic purpose that drove Scorsese to cast Foster is not so evident in Blue Lagoon, and Shields' casting comes off as a kind of prurient stunt, albeit a stunt that I have to say worked. Not from an artistic standpoint necessarily, I have thoughts about that, but from a commercial standpoint,
what was that word you used before stunt?
Prurient.
What is that?
Like intended to titillate.
Okay.
Yeah. While the movie was a critical failure, it was a box office success. Critical hatred was so intense that it became cruel. Shields, and I need to correct Wikipedia here, and I haven't done that because I'm not the guy that corrects Wikipedia. I should start doing this, but Wikipedia got this wrong. She was the first actor to win a Razzie for Worst Actress for Blue Lagoon. They said she won it for a later role, but in fact, Blue Lagoon was her first Razzie. So Razzies are like wicked, unnecessary award show that labels the worst actor and actress of the year.
Yeah, it's super mean-spirited.
And I think often, I'm not going to say sexist, but anti-sex, like these kinds of movies that are a target. Like if you play a part because you look good and, you know, the movie has a kind of like erotic dimension to it, I think the Razzies tend to pick on those movies.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I never really paid that much attention to them. I just knew that they exist.
They picked on Shields more than once, so much so that her Wikipedia page or something, maybe the Razzie page, one of these pages gets wrong when she lost. Or when she won, I should say, because she won several times.
Yeah.
But the first one was in 1980.
And she was 14 years old.
Yeah, so let's say that. She's 14.
On a 14-year-old girl.
She's a model, and let me say as bluntly as possible, what the hell? She's playing, her job is to be a naive child on an island. This is not like a tough acting role. She didn't bomb Kate Winslet's part in Titanic. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're not reaching for the melodramatic heights here. She did just fine. Janet Maslin, writing for the New York Times, found both Shields and her co-star Christopher Atkins perfectly adequate for their fairly breezy roles. Easy movie, they did fine.
Yeah.
Roger Ebert called the movie one of the dumbest of the year for the implausibility of the characters given the plot. Today, the movie has a score of 12% on Rotten Tomatoes.
It's not 0.
No, not 0. We're getting there.
There's not many movies that have a 0.
I know. This is an impressive film.
It is.
So why so much hatred for two naked kids on an island, starting with Brooke Shields and Atkins? What
because it's filmed. That's
a good
If only
point.
we had just photographed it.
No.
Finally, I think a critical audience felt worse about themselves for having gone to see a 14-year-old Shields in a movie primarily about sex, because the movie didn't have the excuse of offering artistic merit or narrative depth. If the movie had some additional purpose, we could be forgiven for having seen it, but it doesn't, and so we must be dirty perverts, because the only reason anyone should see it is sexual. Ebert said, and I thought this was brilliant, Roger Ebert, if you have the time, you can still watch him and Siskel duke it out on YouTube. You can watch Roger Ebert and Gene Siskel argue about the movies of the 80s and the 90s. It's worth it. These guys, they were sharp. Ebert said, let's face it, going into this film, knowing what we've heard about it, we're anticipating the scenes in which the two kids discover the joys of sex. This is a prurient motive, so I stole that word from him, John, on our part, and we're maybe a little ashamed of it. It's very honest, I think, Ebert. The critical audience felt tricked and maybe realized their complicity and resented having been made to watch an erotic movie about a girl who isn't finished growing up.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Icky, right?
Yeah.
But let me say very clearly, and I think the most recent documentary about Shields makes this point as well as possible, that it is not her fault. None of this is her fault.
No.
But she's often made to bear I think the worst of it, I think if we get down to, we're not interviewing Brooke Shields here, but I think if I had to crystallize her complaint, it's not so much what the director of Grease did with her in Blue Lagoon or even what happened in Pretty Baby. It's the way she was treated by everyone and everything outside of these movies. Mm-hmm. She wasn't taken seriously. She was taunted. I think Barbara Walters tried to compare body sizes with her, these kinds of things. Mm-hmm. Yeah, a general icky treatment that need not have come out of these movies. Blue Lagoon was a commercial success. Yes, it did things that I question, but nevertheless, the actor need not bear the brunt of that.
She just became a sexual object and nothing else?
Yes. And was shamed for it, maybe, is what I want to say, John. It's not just about the objectification of her, because a part of me, as a sex-positive feminist, I'm well, if she feels good about herself, and Phoebe Cates is going to really encapsulate this attitude, but if she feels good about herself, she's a model who's successful. And I don't think at 14 or any age we should take that away from her. The sexualization is a problem, don't get me wrong. But I think it's the way she's shamed for her success, maybe. Yeah. Because it has this dimension to it.
It's also blaming her for... She's a 14-year-old girl. She didn't make the movie. She didn't write the movie. She was just...
And her mom's idea to audition, I'm sure, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not like the 14-year-old can really understand what they're doing by putting themselves in that situation to begin with.
Yeah.
Right. The fact that both Shields and Foster were considered for the role showed it was the producer's design to use an actor who was too young for the material from the outset. So what I also want to say is, in Shields' case, it's not like if she didn't do the movie, they would have cast an appropriately aged person. They were fishing around for someone who would draw media attention. Like, it's all about media outside the movie, right? Because when you watch the movie, you can tell she's not, I don't know. She's, I guess, she's got a young face, but you could guess that she's of age if you wanted to. You need to receive that knowledge
suspend
from
the
outside.
disbelief.
Yes. You need to receive that knowledge from outside the movie that she's actually 14. You could at least guess that she's 16 or 17, right?
Oh, that's not like they don't say in the movie, we're 14 years old and this is happening.
No, because, the Sex in Paradise movie, which exists in these two iterations, and I think could have been a brilliant genre, but nevertheless was killed off by Paradise. But that genre of movie is all about them growing up. So you see them as literal children, and then you see, there's that montage where they become teenagers.
Oh, okay.
But there's never any articulation because we're in paradise or, we're on an island. They don't know how old they are.
There's no society or no rules.
Oh, okay.
But we are meant as an audience, independent, the media, right? Mediatization of this, the Entertainment Tonight interviews and whatever else. We are meant to understand them as sexually mature post-montage. So we can go ahead and imagine them in a legal fashion, There's no dictation of, oh, well, I'm 14. Like, nobody's,
Okay.
So to a large extent, it is about the actor and the actor's age insofar as this is scandalizing and draws attention.
This makes the director feel even more scummy.
It's edgelord. Am I using that? Is a little edgelordy? Yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Intentionally.
Provocative.
Like rage baiting.
Yes. Rage baiting. Maybe.
Like a
but
provocateur.
yeah, I don't know that the guy with Grease wanted rage. I think he wanted attention, and the 14 is going to get you that attention. Maybe some negative attention.
All
But
press is good press.
yeah. Anyway. You're violating something. Or maybe, yeah, you're dancing around taboos, I think, that you hope will make, I don't know what you hope.
Well,
Discourse.
get you attention.
Yes. Yeah. But ideally it becomes, anyway. So, let's go back to the fact that the movie made money at the box office. Let's talk about how many monies. 58 million monies.
Oh my God.
What is that in 1980?
58 million monies in 1980.
No, I'm saying as far as like
if we translated it to
in today's
today,
dollars.
probably a couple $100 million. Yeah. This was the 12th highest grossing movie of 1980. The 12th.
Wow.
Yeah.
What else came out in 1980? Do you know what the top grossing was?
Rob should know this offhand.
I really should. That's a good question.
I think 78 was Empire. It might have been Return of the Jedi.
In 1980.
Return of the Jedi definitely would be number one.
It was episode 5 came out. Empire Strikes Back in 1980.
Oh, I should have fucking known that. Or maybe 78 was when the first one came out.
I thought 77 was when the first one came out.
Oh, maybe I'm wrong. Oh, I think I'm getting confused. 78 is when the holiday special came out.
Ah.
So we're looking at Ordinary People with Mary Tyler Moore, Private Benjamin, The Shining came out in 1980.
Oh.
9 to 5, Dolly Parton, right? Airplane, exclamation point.
I've always wanted to watch that movie.
That was
You've
a
never
great
seen
movie.
it?
No.
Don't Call Me Shirley.
So what? But Empire is the number one?
I believe that's the top. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. But number 12 on that list, right?
That's some company to be in.
It is, because these are like career-defining movies. 9 to 5 and Dolly Parton continue to be like married
The
to
Shining.
each other. The freaking Shining.
Yeah.
Most people's only Stanley Kubrick movie they've seen. Even Ordinary People, which is not generally like considered a great movie, but this was this huge melodrama at the time for Mary Tyler Moore. And Private Benjamin is Goldie Hawn, right? That was a big movie for her anyway. So, where were we? This was number 12 in that list of great comedies and Star Wars.
Why do you say it like that?
Because it's not a comedy, I hope.
Oh, no,
No,
but
nobody
you
laughs.
Just,
The Han Solo
moment.
moments can be comedic.
Yeah, that's true.
I feel like Star Wars has its moments.
Empire Strikes Back, I think, is my favorite of those three.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the Empire wins.
I like a good strike back. So, the New York Times review made no mention of Shields' age, by the way. And while Maslin found the movie silly, she wasn't offended by it. So I'm trying to describe why the movie was financially successful. The movie worked on some level, actually one very appealing level, the erotic. The pleasure of the narrative is building suspense to the consummation of the relationship, slowly crafting the conditions for copulation.
Why you said it like that?
That's the title of my new romance novel, The Conditions for Copulation. It's 800 pages. A horror movie functions the same way, but in a violent register. So follow me on this. The teenagers head out to the woods in a horror movie. They hang out in cabins. There's creepy stuff happening. There's dead cats, weird old ladies saying foreboding things, and lots of pointy tools hanging on the walls of the shed. Like, all of these things, you don't want somebody to come out and stab them in the first 45 minutes, right? You want that, that winding you up. Ooh, all this stuff is going to come together in a nasty, gory, deadly way.
Except for the Terrifier films. They just kill people nonstop in those ones.
Or I guess Saw. But
But
even Saw is trying to...
Saw has those build-up moments where they're in the trap and then they're like, oh, they're going to get out of the trap, or they're going to hurt themselves to get out of the trap, and then the trap kills them, and then it's a huge explosion of gore.
And to a certain extent, isn't Saw structured so that, like, you watch that trap at the beginning, but you expect them to get worse and worse and more complicated.
Oh, and then you wait for the twist at the end.
Right. So that's it. You're building up to this thing.
Yeah.
My Blue Lagoon, my erotic movie, is building the same way. Like, you have these two kids and they need to be stranded, right? So we're anticipating the moment when two teenagers discover each other sexually, the same way in a horror movie where our imagination is teased until we're satisfied with the bloodbath. We either have the sex bath or the bloodbath.
I mean, in slasher movies, oftentimes you have both.
That's true. You're having sex and you get stabbed, yeah, but you're anticipating, I guess, both. The island... The dead caretaker for Blue Lagoon, right? We arrive on the island. The one adult who's looking after us kicks it. They make an unrealistically picturesque bungalow out of palm leaves. And then we watch them grow up, right? You have the girl gets her period and the guy learns to masturbate, like all these sorts of things
God.
lead to. It's icky because it's these mile markers of coming of age.
Yeah.
But it's building to the sex. The whole time, we're waiting for them to get it on.
Sounds like a very interesting movie.
Well, it's not. I mean, it's got 12% on Rotten Tomatoes.
I know, I'm just saying.
I'm not pitching you on the genre.
It feels, I think, especially icky watching that, because I think for a lot of adolescents, those are very private moments.
Mm-hmm.
So watching someone's very private moment is just, I think, bad by itself. And then you put in the fact that they are underage, and it's just like completely double bad.
Yeah.
I think that that build-up, the maturity build-up, is unnecessary to creating the erotic experience, the sex bath. It's part of the sex bath in Blue Lagoon. The sex bath. But it's not
that your second
required.
novel?
Yes. That's part 2. It's slightly shorter, 799 pages. So the fact that we're watching two immature partners is the draw, as I'm saying, but also the drawback. Mm-hmm. Writing a 40-year retrospective on the movie for RogerEbert.com, Abby Bender calls the movie out for sexualizing innocence. I think this is maybe what you're talking about, John. We meet the characters as children when they are shipwrecked on the island and watch them transform in a bit of technologically marvelous underwater filming into young adults. Also, we did a lot of underwater filming, which was actually quite beautiful and cool. The shots of the island also are gorgeous in Blue Lagoon. It's great, like, nature photography. But underwater photography was relatively new, so you see a lot of their bodies under the water, and you see the turtles and the,
testing
snorkeling.
out new technology sort of thing.
It's like old, we're not as amazed by it today, but it's still quite beautiful. So anyway, so they like age, right, in this underwater. The fact that the characters are naive should make our voyeurism less dirty because they don't view sex as sinful or wrong. But the characters are so immature that our viewing finally comes too close to pedophilia, which is brought out by Shields' actual age at the time of filming. Mm-hmm. To put it another way, the inappropriate voyeurism begins at the characters and extends to the actors. So we're watching imaginary people who are too young for us to really be watching. Mm-hmm. As John's saying, we're watching something too private. But then if we think about it a little, we realize we're watching at one actor who's too young. Atkins, I think, is 18, but Brooke Shields is 14.
Still, for a lot of, like, for most adults, 18 is still...
It's young.
Like,
You're still young.
I'm not that old.
Yeah.
I'm in my mid-20s, and 18 to me is, you're a child.
Yeah.
It's young.
Also, like, sticking an 18-year-old with a 14-year-old, too, is,
It's
like,
odd.
icky,
Yeah.
too.
It's all sorts of weirdness there.
Ugh.
Where were we? The movie unintentionally draws attention to this by overplaying the characters' innocence. In the book, the characters learn how to express their sexual feelings with each other by watching animals. The movie alludes to this but doesn't spell it out. It is, to paraphrase the New York Times, coy to a fault. Similarly, while the children were old enough to have encountered a pregnant woman at least once before arriving on the island, Shields' character Emmeline misinterprets her pregnancy as sudden weight gain until the baby arrives.
What?
Remember, Roger Ebert called the movie too dumb to be believed. And it is. It's just sort of absurd how dumb they are.
It's also like, I feel like at a certain point, instinct would just kick in and be like, there's something inside of me,
There's a
right?
yeah, there's something going on in here. This might be a person.
I can feel it kicking me.
How are people made?
Yeah.
You got any thoughts on that? Male friend? Okay. So let me pitch this to you now. So Blue Lagoon, clearly, we feel 100% of the ickiness. There are things that are not right about this movie. But maybe I've sold you on the fact that the premise could work as an erotic movie if we just get rid of the icky. Can we pull out the icky and still have a good movie? What if we made a movie that relieved us of the pedophilic weirdness of Blue Lagoon? A Blue Lagoon without the 14-year-old, both in character and in actor. Probably we'd get sued. That's what happened to the creators of 1982's Paradise. Yes, they got sued.
Oh.
Just 2 years after Blue Lagoon.
Paradise is the one that has the 0%.
Here we go, yes.
Okay.
Nice.
Just 2 years after Blue Lagoon.
Oh my God, they only waited 2 years?
Not very patient. I mean, really not even 2 years when you think about the filming process.
Yeah, that movie released and they
It's
were
like
like,
a year.
start filming it.
Yeah, we got a new one.
Like, we gotta do this.
12%, we've got to outdo them.
Well, it wasn't. There was no Rotten Tomatoes, John. The movie Paradise.
Point. When did Rotten Tomatoes become a thing? That
Wait,
could
they
be
had
a fun
Razzies
strange
and they
ride.
didn't have Rotten Tomatoes?
Yeah, they needed Razzies because they didn't have
They
Rotten
didn't
Tomatoes,
really
I
have
suppose.
like the internet,
The
right?
2000s, I think. Yeah, was it like maybe was it the first decade of the 2000s? Rotten Tomatoes.
I don't know.
Hmm.
That could be a fun strange ride, or maybe it'll be really boring. I don't know. I'll look into it.
The answer is 2004. Thank you for listening to Strange Ride.
That's next month's episode now.
So, 2 years after Blue Lagoon, the movie Paradise came out and told the story of David and Sarah, two attractive young white people, much like in Blue Lagoon, from the early part of the 19th century.
Their names are even more boring.
Yeah, no more Emmeline.
David and Sarah. What was the man's name?
Oh,
Or the
I don't
boy's
know.
Name in the, you don't
I don't know.
remember?
Nobody cares about him.
No.
I didn't watch Blue Lagoon. I've seen Blue Lagoon, but I didn't watch it for this conversation because I knew enough about it.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
I've seen it. So, two attractive young white people from the early part of the 19th century. It's pretty much just like Blue Lagoon, right? But
Is it based on a novel?
It's based on the same damn novel.
Nice.
David and Sarah's story, however, takes place in the desert, so there are some shifts.
What?
And their sexual awakening happens at a series of caverns and oases across the arid landscape.
Oh, right, because they ride the camel, right?
They ride the Israeli camel
Oh, that makes more sense
to
now.
their champagne supernova.
But also, but that is a much harder survival situation than living on a nice island. Although I've watched Naked and Afraid, and
That's
that
true.
shit is scary. But
I love Naked and Afraid.
I do too.
Is that the movie that came out in 1978? After
No. This is a reality
You've never
TV
heard of that
show.
show?
You don't
I
know
haven't.
Naked-
It was a joke.
Whenever I go to a conference, I always try to find it, but I think it's not on as much anymore.
I watched it on demand for a minute there.
Oh.
I think
It was
it's like
streaming for a
Discovery
while.
Plus or something. You can watch all of them. And I did, and then I stopped because it stressed me out. And it was sorry. Watching that show. Never mind. This is not what this episode is about. So.
I mean, loosely it is, I suppose. I don't think there's any Naked and Afraid without the Blue Lagoon, but there's hardly any sexual dimension to Naked and Afraid.
Well, no, there's
And hopefully
hardly
there
ever.
are no 14-year-olds in Naked
There are
and
no,
Afraid.
they're all like in their 30s.
I just think it's funny watching that show because they always talk a big game at the beginning of it, and then they're like there for a week, and they're like, "Fuck this shit, I'm tired."
Some
I
of them
wanna
are
go
weeping
home."
on like day 2.
I know,
yeah.
and it's like, dude, you signed up for this shit. It's like,
Okay, so back to Paradise trying to change the story of Blue Lagoon to make it something new. We have a desert. We have the oasis. Phoebe Cates, who played Sarah, was also 17 at the time of filming. She was still a minor, but close enough to adulthood that she was actually able to perform many of her own nude scenes. Many. We'll come back to that. When the creators of Blue Lagoon sued the Paradise producers, they claimed that they had created an unauthorized version of Stackpole's novel, but Paradise's lawyers successfully argued that whether or not Stackpole's book was still under copyright in the UK, the copyright had lapsed in the United States, and the movie was released.
Oh.
Paradise's significant edits to the Blue Lagoon story actually solved at least some of the major problems with the first movie. Cousins Emmeline and Richard Lestrange.
Oh.
Emmeline and Richard Lestrange.
Lestrange?
That's their name.
Lestrange or The Strange?
They're French.
Okay.
Are haunted. They speak English just fine. They are haunted in Blue Lagoon by an indigenous enemy we never see. In Paradise, David,
What?
there's a native population that seems to perform human sacrifices on Blue
Like
Lagoon.
Robinson Crusoe.
What?
Yes, they.
You didn't say this.
Well, now's the. I'm telling you now. It was unrelated.
I feel like this changes the plot of the movie a little bit.
It's like an antagonist for the sake of an antagonist. It adds a little bit of drama, but ultimately it doesn't amount to anything ever.
It's like, oh, there's danger that way.
Yeah, and they stumble across it a couple times, but it never directly threatens them and
Interesting.
has no bearing on
That's
the
so
plot,
weird.
really.
I feel like that just makes that movie even weirder.
In Paradise, David and Sarah are, by contrast, directly attacked by an Arab human trafficker called the Jackal. So we took the
my God.
invisible indigenous people and turned those invisible indigenous people into an actual human trafficking, totally evil
Jackal.
Arab character. Yes.
Whoa.
The Jackal auctions women for a living, and he wants Sarah, not to auction, but to own as a member of his private collection.
No. Oh my God, that is so fucking creepy. It's so gross.
David also wants Sarah, but our brief introduction to his very religious Christian parents, who are dead within 15 minutes of the opening credits, helps to show that his desire is less rapacious.
How did they get lost in the desert?
They're caravanning across the desert, and they get the Jackal gets them.
Oh.
I'll get there. Do we, as an audience, this is the question, want to be the Jackal and consume Sarah, or will we follow David in learning to love as well as desire her? So the movie sort of sets up these poles, right? We see this very gross, rapey, unfortunately non-white character, and he wants our female lead. And we see this little Christian boy who wants her too, but doesn't want her in the same way, right? Doesn't view women as objects. So we are offered through the male romantic lead the opportunity to put on a different set of glasses, I guess, a different lens.
But he's obviously made out to be like the villain, right?
The Jackal is quite
Yeah.
awful, yeah, but he's actually there, and he's very much representing this sexualized objectification, consumption of women as commodity.
So does this mean that we missed out on the growing up aspect of this movie?
We don't, but I'll get there.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It's a good
ready for the
question.
plot.
I know. It's a good question, but we need to wait. So, this is not available in Blue Lagoon because we don't have a character who embodies everything that's wrong with masculinity, Before the caravan is attacked and the main characters are stranded, David comes across the Arab members of the caravan watching a belly dancer. So let me just draw home the idea that David is supposed to be the good one. He's brought into the performance, and the belly dancer starts to dance with him, but the experience overwhelms him, and he runs off. Outside, he sees Sarah from a distance. We watch him watch her bare back as she washes herself from behind a translucent curtain over a stone window, this sort of erotic fantastical image of femininity. With the Jackal and the belly dancer, the movie attempts to set appropriate boundaries around Sarah's and the actor Phoebe Cates' nudity. Women, it's saying in these moments, are not sexual objects to be possessed. They are the subject of romantic longing. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Because the belly dancer, the David says, no, I can't treat women like this, but I can look at her back through the curtain.
Without her consent and knowledge.
Well, chastely, yeah. I have edits for this later. Let's also remember that 1982 is the year of Porky's. Porky's
What?
came out.
Sorry.
You don't know Porky's?
No,
Is that a
I
movie?
don't.
It will fill you with rage for me to just give you this button. Do you know Porky's?
I have no idea.
It is the most notorious teen movie maybe ever made. Porky's came out in 1982 as well, and both Siskel and Ebert called this a movie that obviously hates women. Paradise tried to love women by first creating a villain who is the Arab embodiment of Porky's and then putting an arrow through his neck. Porky's is the movie that the iconically has the men leering at the boys, I should say, leering at the high school girls through a hole in the shower.
The thing that Sonny
People,
was parodying.
yeah, it's frequently parodied, but women are very much like these moronic sexual objects to be possessed by these men and used however they choose throughout the movie. It's extremely
Seen through the lens of a frat boy.
like a frat boy who hasn't even like matured to frat boy status. Like it's an immature frat
Like
boy.
a 16-year-old frat
Yes,
boy.
yeah. It's pretty much the worst. About the Arab, one of many criticisms of Paradise is that it hates non-white people. So there are some retrospective like accounts of this movie, and it almost feels like virtue signaling or something, or like half-hearted wokeism. I don't know, but it says the complaint is that there's an evil Arab character, therefore Paradise hates women. However, the same could be said about Blue Lagoon. Although the fact that the indigenous islanders never show up makes it less visceral. The Arab is so like in your face. In the case of Paradise, though, I don't think this is entirely fair. And this is, I think, a common problem with like lay critics, people who don't have a scholarly background, even some people who do. They think, there's an evil Arab character, therefore the movie hates Arabs. But you have to look at the rest of the movie and notice that there are Arab characters who are perfectly fine and are not evil. The caravan's guide is a perfectly nice guy, Muslim, and is murdered by the jackal along with other perfectly normal non-villainous Muslims.
Why are they traversing the desert?
It's like 1823, and it seems like maybe David's parents are on a mission, and Sarah has her like caretaker, like her guardian with her. She's just like a rich British girl out on.
Yeah, the Brits were definitely involved in
on
the
her
Middle
way to
East in the
Morocco.
1800s.
Yeah, it's like a colonization kind of suggestion. Yeah. By the way, she's British, but Phoebe Cates never does a British dialect in the movie, not for 1 second.
I love it.
It's like just make her American, right? She could be a rich American girl, but the Brits are better for colonization. So the fact that there could be a market for selling humans in this Arabian world isn't a great comment on Muslims, but Paradise is set in 1823 when, let's not forget, Americans were still buying and selling slaves in North America and would continue to for another 40 years. So had the movie
That
simply...
is crazy to think about.
Right. It's insane.
Yeah.
Had the movie just nodded at the fact that Americans were buying and selling humans too, the jackal would not be quite so racially problematic, right? Oh no, evil Arabs are buying and selling humans, but it's 1823, so are white people. A lot. So he's no better nor worse than the white character. Well, the race category anyway. Cates's age, in my opinion, also helps the movie. I guess up against 14, especially against 14, it's less creepy, yes. But the nudity also becomes more natural with an actor who can actually appear on screen with her clothes off. In Blue Lagoon, Shields famously had her hair glued to her breasts, suggesting a nudity forbidden to the viewer. I don't think it's a sin for you all to Google this if you haven't seen any images from Blue Lagoon. The first thing you'll see is an image of Brooke Shields with her hair literally glued to her breasts.
Interesting. Okay.
Her body double, Brooke Shields, by the way, is what I'm talking about, further allowed the audience to imagine a kind of nakedness they weren't allowed to actually see. So I guess if we just put all those pieces together, right? Like you see Brooke Shields on screen, you see that they're covering her breasts, and then you see her breasts, but they're not her breasts. They're the body double's breasts. So there's this complex game going on in your head that the movie's playing with you. I don't mean complex in like a, ooh, there's so much to unpack here, but it's just really effing with your head. But Cates' body is her own for the most part, removing the need to tease the audience with allusions to nakedness. Cates does not have her hair glued anywhere. She often wears a full makeshift bikini, except when she takes it off. She strips intentionally to set up erotic tableaux, showering in a cavern or swimming in the ocean or the grotto. In these moments, we're clearly seeing Cates herself because we're allowed to, like with her face, right? On the rest of her body. And the movie is letting us know it's okay. She's not 14. There's nothing necessarily perverse about seeing a developed female body with full breasts and pubic hair. Ooh.
Oh, God. I forgot about that already.
In these contexts. So are you really... I don't want to miss the point about Shields, right? Like the hair glued. I can't say enough about how this is telling us she shouldn't be in this movie.
Yeah.
All you got to do is take Phoebe Cates' clothes off, though, and leave the camera on her with her face. And that spell is broken. Mm-hmm. That perviness, I guess, goes away. One of the sexiest moments in the movie, in my opinion, is when... Paradise, by the way, is when she's reading a medical textbook in bed. Like Blue Lagoon, the young lovers in Paradise have an anatomy book that helps them understand each other's bodies. How convenient.
But she doesn't know what pregnancy is?
I know, she didn't read far enough. In Paradise, the book is linked very specifically to Sarah's sexuality and desire. Shortly after the caravan is murdered, while her British caretaker is dying from wounds inflicted by the jackal, Sarah passes the time leafing through her medical textbook and sees a picture of a naked man. She laughs and says to David that he looks silly. David, gesturing to an illustration of a female, says, so does she. He says, it's a sin to look at the book, but Sarah says the images are beautiful. She says Adam and Eve were naked. David scoffs. They wore fig leaves. Take that, Sarah. Later, when Sarah spurns David's attempt to kiss her, David freaks out, telling her the book is to blame and runs to tear the pages and burn it before tossing it into the sea.
What?
Yeah. So
What?
the book is some sort of like erotic outlet for her, for Sarah. And after David's, so when he like tries to kiss her, she's like, nah. She says, I'm not ready. And he's like, I'm going to burn the thing you like better than me. The thing you're more sexually interested in than me. I
thought he was blaming the book for his attempt to kiss her.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
He's blaming her.
Okay.
For being more into the book. After David's stung by a scorpion, Sarah observes with a bit of cruelty that it's a shame he destroyed her medical textbook.
Oof. That's kind of funny.
Jesus Christ.
The book, I love that though. Because he's like, he could be dying. And she's like, man, if I still had that book, I could probably help you out here, brother. The book, the medical textbook, represents, in my opinion, a commendable, if somewhat opaque invocation of female desire. A point made more obvious when Sarah is alone with the book. In both Blue Lagoon and Paradise, the stories point very obviously to the fact that the males masturbate. In Paradise, a chimp named Doc follows the lovers around and eventually meets his own female counterpart. This chimp, while not especially funny, embodied the silliness of Paradise's scenario in ways Blue Lagoon did not, theoretically giving the audience permission to enjoy it because of and not in spite of its goofiness. Paradise is in many ways more honest about the fact that it's a goofy movie.
Are there monkeys in the desert?
There's chimps in this movie. There's chimps in the caravan, I think. They're like abducted themselves. They're being trafficked. Trafficked chimps.
That's terrifying.
That's how I read it anyway. So, one day, while Sarah and David are playing hopscotch, like you do.
In the desert?
Yeah, that's what 17-year-olds do in the desert. The chimp starts to masturbate, and David gets...
Oh, God. Okay.
It's so silly. And David
silly is not the word I would have used.
It's just a chimp, John. David gets very upset like John is. And,
what the fuck?
And Sarah says, why are you so mad? You do it yourself. This makes David even angrier, although less obvious. Sarah's nocturnal reading of the medical textbook implies that she does it too. Now, this is a fairly progressive comment, where I guess you guys are struggling with the male chimp, but
yeah.
It's just weird.
It's an image I don't want in my head.
I'm also just thinking about this guy gets angry really easily.
He does, yeah.
Prepubescent boys get angry a lot.
They do. I think that's actually pretty realistic. So, so anyway, this is what I really like about how the movies are different here. The implication in Blue Lagoon and with this chimp plotline in Paradise is that all men masturbate. But that medical textbook says, wait a second, in Paradise, girls do too. It's not just men who do this. So Sarah is leafing through the book in the night, and she looks over at the sleeping David. She gets up out of her straw and palm leaf bed, and the audience discovers that she's sleeping naked. A clever way of setting up her adventure here, because something in the textbook has made her want to look at David. When she lifts up David's blanket and peeks underneath, the fact that she's naked helps us understand exactly what she's looking at, and then she goes back to bed and curls up with the book. Come on.
Oh.
What's happening there?
Yeah.
But isn't
also
that
more
great?
Non-consensual looking at
Oh,
people, but just,
Non-consensual.
Am I not? What's happening?
Can I please have my moment of female liberation here, like female sexual
You
empowerment?
wouldn't shut up last episode. Okay, but sure.
Non-consensual looking. He was trying to kiss her. Anyway, in Paradise, it's the character's puritanism that keeps them from having sex, not their inexperience or naivety. I think this is an important change too, an improvement. The movie undermines itself with ham-handed attempts to imply their innocence, but it's too ridiculous to be believed. So you asked if they mature. Sarah, so ridiculous. Sarah seems to get her first period, although the movie is insanely coy about it, and she asks David if he's noticed that her breasts have grown. Of course he hasn't, because of course they haven't. Cates was the same size throughout the movie, and her obviously older body had naturally gone through the milestones of puberty years before. In general, Sarah and David do not play as innocent as Emmeline and Richard.
That's weird. But that's where I was getting at, because like Blue Lagoon is like you literally watch them grow up.
Yes.
In Paradise, they're not in the desert for
We
years.
meet them both as teenagers, as fully grown, sexually mature
teenagers.
teenagers.
I think what I meant about the coming of age, but
Yes.
they still kind of tried to do it, though.
They tried to do it. I think they shouldn't have bothered. I think it's really stupid. They should have just let them be a fully sexually mature teenagers.
Yeah.
But, oh well. These kids know about sex in Paradise. They're interested in each other, but they hold themselves back. Unlike Emmeline, when Sarah and David conceive a child, Sarah knows she's pregnant and that pregnancy can be dangerous, and the couple actually finds their way to civilization in time for the baby to be born.
Oh, shit. They're out in the desert for at least 9 months then.
At least 9 months.
Yeah.
More than that. Well, I mean, I guess it depends on how you read it. Like, if she's going through puberty and her breasts are growing, they're out there for years. But I read it as about a year because I let that go because it's ridiculous.
Yes.
All of this could amount to a better movie, and in some ways, Paradise is a sexier movie, as I've described, because you feel less bad about it. But the movie fared far worse than its predecessor with both audiences and critics, as we know. Not only does it have a 0% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, but it didn't make much money. It was 95th at the box office in 1982, making around $5.5 million. So what went wrong? The best answers come from Phoebe Cates herself, who was 18 when the movie was released and remarkably frank about its pitfalls. Paradise was Phoebe Cates' screen debut, and her father, a TV producer, told her she shouldn't turn down the lead role in a feature film. Because she was like, hemming and hawing about this movie for a lot of reasons, right? She's going to be totally naked on screen. Like, it's a big deal. Cates had been a model, and she'd appeared in Glamour in 17, but she wanted to break into acting. The nudity didn't bother her. She told People magazine in June 1982, if a girl wants a career, she has to be willing to strip. If you've got a good bod, then why not show it? That's the most 80s thing in the world to say. If you've got a good bod, it's rad.
Yeah.
If you got a rad bod.
It's a little sad that she thinks that, though.
Well, she's a model.
I mean, I guess it was the 80s, though,
yeah,
so she's not necessarily wrong in the 80s, at least, I guess.
And there's a sex positive feminism, too. If you've got a good bod, why not show it?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, because it's not sinful for a woman to show off her body.
Right,
But,
Yep. But when she saw the finished version of Paradise, she was pissed. And she refused to do any press or attend any parties for the movie because the director had used a body double to literally flesh out her sex scenes with the 18-year-old Aames, a TV actor known, by the way, for 8 is Enough. Aames was also reportedly upset, but he followed through on the studio's requests for appearances without her, which totally...
Whoa.
Right, like all the late-night shows and the red carpets and the parties. It's just freaking Aames by himself. Phoebe Cates is nowhere to be seen. And Phoebe Cates is, of course, more the center point, right? Just like the female model is better paid than the male model. With the body double... So why is Phoebe Cates upset, right? It has something to do with this body double. Because she was ready to get naked. She was planning on seeing her body on screen. She has no problem with that.
Well, they filmed her too, right?
Yep, she's totally fine with all that. But the body double.
But when did they use it? I'm sorry.
In the sex scenes.
Oh, okay, but they didn't use it in... So you can still see her, like, actually naked in that movie?
Just not during the sex scenes.
Interesting, okay.
I'm going to analyze this.
Mm-hmm.
With the body double, the movie went against its own ethic. It told the audience that Jackal-style viewing of Cates's body as a mere commodity was wrong. We should only view her nudity through the eyes of Ames's character as something beautiful, the subject of love and respect. The movie, in other words, was attempting to be something more than pornography. The body double contributed nudity specifically to sex scenes, pushing our viewing of Sarah too close to that of the jackal. Like John said about privacy in puberty, it's sort of like that. Mm-hmm. It's pushing us into too private of a territory. Cates's attitude captured a third wave, as I'm saying, pro-sex feminism, of which I am a member, that was ahead of its time. She was a member before, well, obviously, I was a zygote. She went on to do a far more famous nude scene in Fast Times at Ridgmont High when she took off her bikini top in the imagination of Judge Reinhold's character. You guys know this scene, right? When she's coming out of the pool and she's wearing the red bathing suit and she takes her top off. This is like iconic. So. The iconic 80s moment. Mm-hmm. It doesn't actually happen. It's a fantasy that the older brother is having. In 1982, the second wave of feminism was ascendant. So I want to contextualize this even more. Phoebe Cates, this bod line that I'm really like harping on, you have to remember this. To be a feminist in 1982 means you were a second wave feminist, not a Rob third wave feminist, which is, I guess, out of fashion now, but I'm making a case for it right here. At its most extreme, second-wave feminism viewed all male heterosexual desire as violent and ill-intentioned and considered any form of sexualization as objectification and morally wrong.
It's a really stark position to
very
take,
pro-abstinence.
I'm not making a joke here, but it was a very lesbian-centric wave of feminism. Mm-hmm. Like there was this notion of woman-only spaces. We don't need men. We don't want to be near men. I mean, this is where the phrase "a woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle" comes out of. It's this.
I do like that. Well, just imagining a fish trying to ride a bicycle makes me laugh.
One of my best friends in high school was a lesbian, and she had that bumper sticker on the back of her car. Drove around in her car listening to lesbian music. I think she really hoped I would turn out gay. I'm sure it was a terrible disappointment to her. Cates. What's up, Noelle? You still out there? Cates, anyway. Cates articulated her right to be attractive and be desired and be naked, with the very important caveat that it happened on her own terms. Paradise failed her and itself when it did not honor those very reasonable and forward-thinking conditions. Show my body, right?
Yeah.
Show my body in the shower, show my body taking a skinny dip. That's all good. But not in the sex scenes. They just couldn't stop. They just had to keep going. Crueler and more exploitative movies fared much better than Paradise. So again, to put this in context, not only do we have a very hard feminism in the 1980s. We also have a very hard anti-feminism, a really strong streak of woman hating.
Well, is that over with? Has that ever
like you
not
said,
been
Porky's.
a thing?
Porky's.
So.
Consider Porky's, with its gawking teenagers ogling female bodies detached from any semblance of character. This is a theme, right? These naked women. Like, think about how many movies you've seen where the female lead is never undressed, but a random character is naked. We just saw one, right? where Escape from Tomorrow. The character who doesn't have any lines, right?
Yes.
We see her breasts.
Oh, yeah.
But all the other
I complained about
characters,
that.
this is part of that phenomenon. We don't want the complex experience of a fully fleshed out female character who is also sexually desirable. We just can't take it.
Huh.
So we sort of like short circuit, or I'm not saying we, I guess a toxic masculinity short circuits.
Because they see women as sex objects,
Yes.
and then
They can't talk and also be naked.
You can't understand that your mother had sex to make you. And I know none of us want to imagine that, but we have to understand that that's who women actually are, is our moms and our children and, our daughters and our wives. And all of these people are full human beings, just like men. I think what toxic masculinity to me is at its core, and I'm defining this in ways that I think none of the culture today would agree with, or I don't freaking know it. I don't care. I'm telling you what I think. At its core is a refusal to acknowledge that women are complete people and to sort of treat every woman that way,
Yeah, I can see that.
And Cates is sort of demanding that of her audience in Paradise and of the producers of Paradise, and everyone's letting her down.
That is interesting.
Because she's not going to break up with being a sex object. She loves it to some extent. Or I don't know if she loves it. I can't speak for her, but she's on board.
Sex object is the right word, but
sex
symbol?
subject. Sex subject. Sex
Sure.
symbol, yes. She does all
Yeah.
kinds of sex comedies, teen sex comedies at this time period. And she's funny and she's great. She's a great actress. She's a very attractive girl. I mean, there's no reason why not to enjoy it if you do.
Yeah. It's still a little creepy that she is underage, but yes.
Not nearly as creepy as Brooke.
but yes.
And I think they're probably just, they're trying to get, she's too old to function the way Brooke Shields did, but they're still trying to get a little bit of that.
Yeah. No, yeah.
She's old enough to sign off on her own. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's all very boring, but she's 17.
Yeah,
there's a little bit of that. Anyway, like Blue Lagoon, Porky's was a big box office success, netting $160 million. A movie that hated women and was hated by critics as well. These movies pushed the sexual liberation of the 1960s to its furthest limits while leaving behind the ideology of love, rendering screenfuls of toxic imagery that were generally bad for women. Sex can be innocent, but only between equal partners able to explore desire in a relationship characterized by affection rather than control. Let me say that one more time. Let's meme this. Sex can be innocent, but only between equal partners able to explore desire in a relationship characterized by affection rather than control.
Like in The Lion King.
Like in The Lion King.
Okay. I just that
Simba
wasn't
and
my
Nala.
first thought.
Simba
but
and
yeah,
Nala.
sure. Yeah.
Exactly right. Not so much The Little Mermaid.
Ooh.
Blue Lagoon was not Porky's, but Shields was simply too young to participate fully in the sex she was meant to portray, and the movie showed its hand in this regard when its characters resorted to stereotypical gender behavior despite having almost no exposure to the civilization that invented them. The older Cates was better positioned to enjoy agency in her sexual representation in Paradise, and Paradise should be lauded for its initial attempt to create a more female-positive eroticism in the narrative, remember my medical textbook. But in failing to follow that project through, it became both derivative of Blue Lagoon and sexually immoral, more or less indistinguishable from these other movies.
And she was she went on talk shows to talk about how much she hated the movie and
I don't
stuff
think
like that?
so.
Oh, no. Okay. I thought
She
I
just didn't
remembered
do any
you saying
press.
that.
She did do some press where she said this is a terrible movie.
Oh, okay.
But I don't think she was on Johnny Carson saying it was a terrible movie.
Got it.
Yeah. So it was more like People magazine and stuff.
So in your opinion, do you think the issue is with the fact that there were sex scenes in the movie or that there was a body double during the sex
It's
scenes?
the body double. I have to follow Cates, right? Maybe that's the anthropologist in me, but she set the terms. It's her body, and in that way, it's her movie. It's everybody's movie. It's all the creators, right? But insofar as it's her body and she's agreeing to a certain kind of sexualization, she gets to determine the limits of that. And when they agree to that and then they change that, I think that's the problem. I think narratively, if we're not thinking about Cates the actor, but we're thinking about the character Sarah, yes, I think it's okay to see her having sex, but I think the sex shouldn't be so explicit.
Yeah.
Because we get to, romanticize and fantasize about her in these, like I said, water scenarios. And that's all good. I think it's very romantic and, whatever. But then to have it in the sex scenes is just taking it too far. Yeah.
It's too overt.
It is, yeah. It should be more elegant. I think it's not treating her respectfully in that moment, the character, as the movie has up to this point. It's, obsessed over her and how beautiful she is and her sexual, awakening and honored her sexual desires, the characters all throughout. And then suddenly it just sort of like reduces her to a character in a 2-minute Pornhub video. Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe I don't know.
No, I mean, it sounds, yeah.
Yeah. We haven't fully solved this issue today.
Oh, well, okay.
Liberalism attempts to legislate its way to sexual liberation, but this tends to remove the human elements of care and even erotic spontaneity from sex. Think of college students pausing to text each other messages of consent while petting heavily in order to prevent future legal woes. Today, nudity is a common feature of many films.
Is that a thing that happens?
It's a thing. Oh, yeah.
That sounds dystopian.
Poor Gen Z. Today, nudity is a common feature of many films, and intimacy coordinators are brought in to negotiate the terms of sex scenes. We know about this, right? Intimacy coordinators.
Ryan Reynolds?
But an intimacy coordinator.
Are you referencing Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds right now?
In what way?
Oh, I thought you were making
This is a real job, intimacy coordinator.
No, I know,
that was a whole
but
thing,
there's
though,
there's a huge drama thing going on right now because of a movie that Blake Lively was in where the director of the movie was also the lead actor, the lead romance actor, and the romance of the movie is that he's like a dominant, controlling, and like abusive person, and then she I don't know.
And they didn't have an intimacy coordinator?
I don't remember actually. I don't know.
There was
I haven't really
allegations
looked too much into
about his inappropriate conduct, and I think in the Deadpool movie that came out after that movie, Ryan Reynolds' character in the movie made a joke about an intimacy coordinator to a character that looked like the director and the actor that was in the Blake Lively movie.
Yeah, it's pretty dumb drama stuff, but
Oof.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say great things about intimacy coordinators because an intimacy coordinator would not have solved the problems with Paradise, right? It was the body double that was the issue. Kate's complaint came down to a failure of honesty and respect. In order to create, artists must be free to express themselves and their preferences and have ownership over the performances that they produce. Given honesty and respect, consenting artists need not ever consult an intimacy coordinator, a role that infantilizes actors by wrapping them in the cold blanket of bureaucratic process. A moral problem is a cultural problem, not a legal one. People should try to understand and relate to each other because it feels right and good, not to protect their insurance companies from lawsuits. It's the culture that divorces sex from love, care, and consent and places it in the realm of power, control, and abuse. I understand why the studios have intimacy coordinators. I understand why college campuses have been weird about actors touching each other on stage. But I think it is not from a place of allowing people to be fully cognizant adults who care about each other. I think it's from a place of just protecting our butts from getting sued. And I think that's an enormous problem. I would rather remove all the intimacy coordinators and tell all the artists in all the movies, you need to respect each other, and if you don't, you deserve to get sued.
Yeah.
Be respectful. Now, starting today, are your actors naked? Be respectful. If you're naked with another actor, be respectful. Everybody be respectful. And nobody's here from the studio or from some intimacycoordinator.com to make you be respectful. You're going to get sued.
Even if you're not naked, just be respectful.
Yes,
Yeah.
You're right, John. I mean this in general.
Even if you're not doing anything sexual, just
Be respectful. Conservatism, by the way, so if you think I'm just here to attack the liberals, you haven't listened very closely to our previous episodes. Conservatism doesn't have the answer either insofar as it denies our nature for no good ethical purpose. Humans like to desire and to be desired. This is a core dynamic in how we make more humans. In agreeing to make Paradise and show her bod, Cates demonstrated faith in building a culture where women could be sexualized without being degraded. In shaming sexual expression as sinful, conservatism implicitly labels sex and sexual feelings as wrong. Historically, women are blamed for inspiring sexual feelings in men and told or forced to cover up. This shame moves sex off the big screen into the very small screens of our phones in the form of internet pornography. Here, the idea that sex is always already sinful conjures images of women degraded for being sexual. You following me here?
Mm-hmm.
This is my pro-porn feminism, so if anybody's been wondering what this means, it's this. My attack on liberals and my attack on conservatives is the way pro-porn feminism should be. Sexually expressive women don't receive adoration and tender caresses from their partners, but are choked and urinated on and ejaculated on like blow-up dolls. There isn't a slippery slope between Cates and Pornhub. Good big screen sex could be the remedy for the latest generation's addiction and mimicry of bad small screen sex. Respect is always possible as a corrective, and sexual beauty can be displayed without shame when respect is present. You guys all right with this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. In the interview with People, Kate said, "When you start out, you have to make compromises, which include doing films of lower quality." and she called Paradise a ripoff, which of course it was. The movie failed commercially because it had already been done before, and while Aames and Cates were just as pleasant to look at as Shields and Atkins, Paradise did not do enough to innovate on a genre it could have been establishing. Naked in Paradise movies might have been their own subgenre of romantic comedies. With the chimps, Paradise seemed willing to allow the tropical sexual awakening plot to exist in a more comedic register, relieving it of Blue Lagoon's self-seriousness and creating a new kind of teen movie. But gender role, wouldn't that have been fun?
Still the Ferris Bueller stuck in the desert
Yeah.
and shit.
Yeah, Ferris Bueller's Naked Desert Day. But would have been a far less unusual movie. But gender roles remained hopelessly traditional, as if they were natural, with David in Paradise doing the hunting and Sarah staying home to watch laundry. David slays the jackal with his bow and arrow, and Sarah tries and fails to not get kidnapped. Given Kate's natural comedic talent, which we'd discover later in Ridgmont High and Gremlins, this could have been a better movie. But it would have taken a substantial rewrite. And let me, as an ending of this episode, provide you with that rewrite.
Oh no, you're script doctoring this?
Oh yeah. And this will be the one movie I make in my career. Coming to YouTube.
Okay.
Ultimately, the jackal, while the largest innovation in the narrative, was not necessary and distracted the movie from the more enlightened and erotic places it could have gone. Sarah and David are caught between the jackal's world of rapacious consumerist sexual exploitation and the Puritan world of David's parents, which is not entirely fleshed out enough. Let me bring you back to the moment when David spies Sarah bathing through a gauzy curtain in the open air just after running away from the belly dancer. And imagine a different sequence of events. Sarah turns and sees David watching her, but rather than covering up, she shimmies out of her skirt and continues to bathe, knowing she's being observed. David's parents and Sarah's caretaker servant, reimagined as a puritanical tutor, discover what's happening between the would-be lovers and attack them both, whipping and bruising them. Later that night, Sarah appears, bloodied and with a black eye, leaning over David. She quietly wakes him and silently coaxes him to run off with her into the desert. They hop on an Israeli camel and disappear.
The camel stayed in the movie.
The camel stays. We need the camel.
It's integral.
They make their way to the cave and to the spring, where they chastely bathe apart from one another on either side of a rock pillar, but both attempt to catch glimpses of the other before continuing on their way, the male gaze and female gaze. Both are ogled by the audience on equal terms. Arriving at the ocean side, they happen across a band of pirates who abducts them, threatening to sell them into slavery, but the pirates turn out to be actors who perform live sex shows, and David and Sarah are relieved and a little horrified.
What?
Stay with me now. I said, Savannah, that the pirates turn out to be actors who perform live sex shows, and David and Sarah are relieved and a little horrified to find themselves in the middle of an orgy. This is the best movie, come on. You would see this. The actors try to get them to join, but they escape into the night once again and make their way to a quiet oasis where they struggle with their inner Puritans to connect with each other. You see what I'm trying to do here? Sarah...
They're the belly dancer of the situation.
They're the belly dancer.
But the belly dancer was still in the movie.
She is, but she's not doing near enough work. We haven't really understood what they're dealing with. It's an internal struggle. Sarah sneaks a look at David's penis and tastefully masturbates. I'm keeping that scene. I like that. Sorry about the whatever Savannah said about it not being voluntarily. You didn't like it.
Yeah.
She didn't get permission.
Well,
Everybody's,
yeah,
but
because I think I don't know, if you're sleeping and then somebody takes your clothes off to look at you, that's not right.
what I'm trying to say is tasteful female masturbation is okay. Everybody does it. We're getting over it.
Yes.
So the
and
medical
that's
textbook
fine, and
stays
that's
in
not
the
what I
movie.
was saying.
I also want to say nobody's breasts get any bigger, and everyone has ordinary bodily functions that nobody is surprised about because they know, and we know, that they're sexually mature, have been the whole movie, and will be the entire movie. Anyway. Their guardians resurface, seeking the young lovers out. The Puritans, remember, they're coming for them. This is the enemy. David considers returning with them because he's kind of a stooge. And Sarah's pissed about it, but a serpent interrupts their argument and bites them both. There's a long fever dream involving pirates in chimp masks playing hopscotch.
Oh my God.
Amazing.
And when they, right? See, John's with me. He wants to make this movie. We just need a female lead, John. We've already got the male now. When there's a long fever dream. Sorry, did that. Chimp masks, hopscotch. When they recover 24 hours later, they hear their guardians still searching for them. This time, David ignores them, and they sneak off. He's learned something in his fever dream. They sneak off to
How to play
another,
hopscotch.
yes, still more hidden oasis where they have sex for the first time, which we don't see much of because we don't want to see that sex.
No.
We don't need to.
No.
And they skinny dip, and we see plenty of that. And this happens for about 20 minutes before Sarah gets pregnant and they rent a condo in Thebes to raise their sex-positive daughter Eloise, who goes on to establish a honeymoon cottage off the coast of Mauritania.
You
Blackout.
say Eloise again?
Eloise.
Oh, Eloise. Sorry.
Emmeline. That's all I have to say about that. It's only taken me 80 minutes to talk about one of the worst movies of the 80s. What did I sell you? Did I sell you on my script treatment?
I like the symbol of the snake in there too, with the
Ah,
with
yeah?
the naked people and the snake.
See?
Yeah.
See?
No fig leaves in sight.
No fig leaves in sight.
I'm really just thrown off by the orgy pirates.
The orgy pirates?
Yeah.
It's like Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. Like, you think they're pirates, but they're not actually pirates. They're just actors playing
No, I
pirates
know,
who
but
also do live sex
why the
shows.
fuck are they hanging out at the desert?
They're in the beach. They're in the beach.
Oh.
On the
Okay.
oasis.
Yeah.
But kidnap them and then start having an orgy?
Yeah.
Like,
They're trying to get them in their sex club. They're a weird, kinky sex club.
this is, yeah.
But
it's
David and
weird.
Sarah are like, no, too much for us. We're Puritans. We can't do this.
Until they hallucinate about them.
Until they hallucinate, and then they have sex, finally.
I'm not.
We've almost got her, John. We have a producer ready. We almost have our... She can direct. Fuck it. I wrote it. She can direct. Are you with us?
I think I'd need to script.
You need to... You need to see... Okay, all
A
right.
little bit.
What you want to change the live sex pirates? What are you looking for there?
More chimp masks.
Not enough chimp masks is what you're saying. Okay, done. We'll have a third chimp. It'll be a thruple.
Only
It'll be
during
a
the
hopscotch
hallucination.
Yes, only during the
Oh
hallucination.
my
There's no
God.
thruples in the orgy. Everyone's properly monogamously paired during the pirate orgy.
I don't care about that either. But I just think I don't know. It just came so out of nowhere that I am still thrown off by it.
All right, let me ask this. Not about my movie anymore. Do you think that my theory that Paradise could have been a better Blue Lagoon, could have solved Blue Lagoon's problems? Do you believe we could have invented a genre here?
I don't know. I feel like it feels like it would just be the same movie and over again.
Isn't
over
a
and over.
Western, though?
I guess. I don't know. I haven't seen a lot of Westerns.
So
I'll
many
be honest.
rom-coms, right? Or so many wedding movies.
No, I guess that's fair.
This is like a wedding movie or a Western, but it's always, in a tropical location with, two young lovers who connect and get naked and discover.
Does it have to be tropical or could just be a getaway?
Yeah, sometimes it could be Arctic. Why not? Let's
Yeah.
have fun with it.
I mean, yeah, they could go the naked and afraid route where you never
yeah.
know where they're going to drop you off. So.
Because there could be like the bodily warmth thing going
Oh, that's
on.
hot. That's
Yeah.
hot. That's literally hot.
All right,
Oh,
well,
okay.
then we're script doctoring your script doctor again. We're going to do it in the Arctic.
All right. So the pirates take them to the Arctic to do the orgy.
No, they're traversing the Arctic. They're looking for the endurance.
Yeah. They're looking to create a
Sunken
Puritan
ship.
mission
Or they're
to the
trying
penguins.
To say, yeah, I was about to say they're trying to
Just say-
find. There's like a disease that's gonna kill the world, and the only cure is to find this one penguin that can like.
Very good.
And they gotta go. Well, why are these teenagers in charge of this? Never mind.
They're not in charge. They leave. They run away from their parents. Their parents are there to find the cure and also convert any Arctic nativers they find to Christianity.
And the pirate orgy people are trying to convert the natives to join their troop.
Their pirate orgy,
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But it's a little cold for that.
I don't know why the pirate orgy
Maybe
people
we
are
should
there
do this
anymore
in the
because they
Arctic.
have nowhere to perform for because it's the
Yeah,
Arctic.
I
Yeah,
was
so
about
we
to
need
say,
to.
the Arctic makes this a lot harder. Now
Yeah.
I'm thinking it's more like The Thing and.
Oh no,
That's such a good
not that
movie,
kind of movie.
But maybe the Arctic isn't a great place to do a romance like this.
It could get cold though. We could have a warm and cold season. It could be in Canada.
I was thinking Newfoundland.
Newfoundland. Why not? There's an audience there for my pirate sex show.
Sure.
All right, done. Thank you for riding with us.
Thank you for riding along with us. Please watch your step as you exit and remember to take all personal belongings with you.
I just want to add a quick note of postscript to today's episode. Phoebe Cates agreed to appear naked in 1982's Paradise and was by all accounts comfortable with her choice. She was wronged when the movie's production team chose to use a body double to add even more nudity to the movie, specifically in sex scenes, and she responded by rejecting the movie and refusing to do press for it. The movie failed, ending up with a 0% score on Rotten Tomatoes, and Cates went on to a healthy career, appearing in much more well-regarded movies like Fast Times at Ridgmont High and Gremlins. Cates was not a victim, and did not allow herself to be framed that way. Even with Paradise, she scored a victory because of her uncanny shrewdness and entrepreneurial skill at the age of 17. Cates insisted on singing the movie's original title song, which is actually pretty good, and it hit number 1 in Italy. Cates would go on to record additional themes in 1983's Private School.